Back on the road is AEW Dynamite, and boy, did they deliver. And I'm not being facetious. They had something for everybody. Like it, love it, dislike it. You at least had to watch and be interested and be compelled to stand up and tweet something. Tweet something, say something, leave a super chat. That's what we want you to do here tonight on the AEW Post Podcast here all across the Wrestling Inc. platforms, YouTube, Twitch, Periscope, Facebook, audio platforms, whatever it might be. I'm Justin LaBar alongside my Wednesday night partner in crime. Check him out on Forbes every single week. He is Alfred Konuwa. Alfred, happy Wednesday night to you.
Happy Wednesday to you, Justin. And you hit the nail on the head. They literally had something for everybody, even people who hate AEW. And that might have been one of the best things in the show.
Absolutely. They even gave a live mic to an MMA promoter and let him run down and speak as an AEW hater.
Bury the company.
Oh man! So we'll get to that. All kinds of things. We see everybody starting to filter in here, so we'll give it just a second. Again, just a reminder: if you like this podcast, please give it a like. Again, wherever you're at, Twitch, YouTube. If you're on Apple, if you're on the Google Play Store, give it a like. That stuff goes a long way. Share it, comment it, rate it. Preferably a nice one if you must. So do all that kind of good stuff. And Alfred, we got some news we'll jump into as well. And all the news, I believe, is all WWE-based news. So we'll do some WWE-based news before we get into AEW Dynamite tonight. We'll start with the story that's not new. Obviously, it broke yesterday, a sad one, an unfortunate one. That, of course, being Jimmy Uso getting another DUI arrest in Florida, running a red light, doing 55 and a 35, failing field sobriety. So he would spend overnight in the tank, as they would say, getting bailed out the next morning. And the latest just news update is, it's kind of like a no news, but I guess it's just worth bringing up because everybody's kind of watching their social media feeds, is that WWE has yet to publicly acknowledge with any comment, and as far as we know, discipline, at least if any discipline has come down, it's not made its way to the media and in the way of suspension, fine, or otherwise. This is it was his third one or second one in the last 2 years.
Yeah.
Third one overall.
Yeah, I think it's his fourth DUI arrest. I mean, he wasn't charged with a DUI every time. There was one time that he's not guilty, but he's been arrested for DUI at least 4 times. And then there was one time where he drove with a suspended license after getting a probation. Yeah,
I mean, and like, look, and I know I'm sure you touched on a little bit last night, and I don't want to, no, and I'm not holier than thou. I'd be lying if I said I didn't have a beer before and get behind the wheel. It's not smart to do. And I always, this is separate from this. I always say this. Like I've always said, like if I had unlimited amount of money, one of the first things I do is hire a driver.
100%. Never
mind for these situations of you've had one too many out, but like, just the amount of work I can get done in the car when I don't have to focus on the road, and sitting in traffic, a thing like phone calls I can answer, emails I can answer. And I always just wonder, I mean, I know you want to have, I guess, your freedom and your privacy, but man, oh man, like, you're a guy that makes certainly good money. I mean, you got the Uber app.
Yeah, exactly. And that's one of the many things that kind of tells you how serious of a problem this is. Not only how easy it would be for him to get a driver, but also this has affected his brother too. I mean, Jey Uso's gone through it as well. You would think that would be enough of a wake-up call, but clearly WWE is kind of navigating around this sensitive situation. I don't know what their lean is going to be, but I just really do hope the priority is to get this guy help. I do think that, yes, of course, it was very reckless for him to continue to do these things, but at the same time, two things can be true in that. I also do believe that this man needs help, and I think this is something that might be out of his control in dealing with, because he clearly continues to risk not only his life but his well-being and his professional well-being, which, I mean, he's one of WWE's top stars. And not to get too dark about this, but there's a reason that he's had all these arrests and is still here, is because he's that good. He's worth this risk, but they need to minimize this risk by actually stepping in and hopefully controlling this thing.
Well, he's that good, and then of course the timing of being involved in the storyline you're involved in with a family member who is the leader of the company from the locker room standpoint. So but all judgment, opinions, and politics aside, the point is, let's hope that he gets whatever he needs of help wise. And but we wait and see what is this going to mean. Obviously, SmackDown is live this Friday from the Thunderdome. They taped Raw for next week, but I believe this Friday is live. It's right. It's the last live program from Thunderdome, I believe.
Yeah, I believe they already taped the one for this Friday. I'm not 100% sure, but I know they're going live on the 16th, a week from Friday. But I don't know if this one coming up is going to be live.
Okay, so this one is taped, and that it probably was taped, I would guess, yesterday then, but whether or not we see Jimmy Uso or what have you in the storylines, we'll wait and see. So again, hoping the best for there. Real quick, a super chat did jump in here. I'll acknowledge that. This coming from $10 from Corey. Thank you, Corey. My favorite AEW episode ever. Great matches, great promos, a big surprise, and pettiness with shots taken at WWE. And later in the show, what I believe was a shot at Jim Cornette. Great super chat there, Corey. Corey kind of setting up the tease here without giving everything away. Yeah, all these things we'll touch on here in just a few minutes on AEW Dynamite as we finish up on the news. So that there with Jimmy Uso, of course, is on SmackDown. Then we also find out SmackDown last week, Alfred, draws the second lowest audience since its time on Fox, 1.861 million.
Yeah, I mean, I think you can tie this to the 4th of July weekend because we're going to also get into what the Raw number did. And, WWE does have a history of drawing the lowest number ever. Like, this is not the first time they've drawn the lowest number ever, even the second lowest number ever for a July 4th show. But at the same time, this is also a subplot with, this is a show after Edge returned. And, even though you can kind of put it on the 4th of July weekend, this is becoming what I think is a frustrating trend in that Edge, every time he comes out and has like a match or his first match back, didn't do well, and I think Edge has just been so phenomenal promo wise, match wise, how he looks better than he did when he was in his prime, and he just does not seem to be able to come in and draw. And the only thing I can attribute that to is the fact that I think we're like now getting to the second generation of part-timers. Like WWE's been doing this part-time thing so long that Edge now represents the second generation of part-timers who are from an era that really wasn't as popular as the Goldberg era, as Batista's era, as Cena's era. So Edge is kind of in that second generation. I don't think WWE is going to start to get residual value out of these part-timers. That's going to be very disappointing, I think.
Next up, it's Dolph Ziggler. He's the next tier part-time.
He already might be a part-timer.
He already might be. Yeah, he's already doing the comedy circuit and Fox News or whatever else he does. All right. Well, so yeah, not great numbers there for SmackDown on its Fox tenure, but yeah, the worst of the worst, Alfred. When I say worst of the worst, this is dating back since the inception, since the start of Monday Night Raw in 1993. We've been there for the whole entire ride, and this was the lowest viewed Raw average, with the Raw drawing an average of 1.472 million. This according to Brandon Thurston of WrestleNomics. This is down 6% from the previous week, and this is the worst ever. Now, granted, it technically, 4th of July was technically the day before, so the next day, Monday, a lot of people do get off or are still on holiday vacations. But there was no NBA competition. There was NHL for the Stanley Cup, but not for the NBA. But so I mean, there's just no other way to spin this. I mean, I did this podcast Monday night, and I just harped on we can't get out of the Thunderdome fast enough.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm terrified for that NXT number because that, in that 4th of July kind of same span, hopefully people will be coming out of it and back to work and back to be able to watch it. But that went head to head against the NBA Finals. And I don't see that, even though it was a Great American Bash show, which I think should help the rating. I don't see that doing too hot. But yeah, this Raw rating was very, very bad, which is weird because I don't think Raw has necessarily been great these past few weeks. But in the last, I would say 3 weeks, it has definitely been improved in terms of them kind of focusing more on Riddle and telling that story. And I think Riddle has just shined as a star in these past 3 weeks. And I've actually liked the direction they're going with Raw in terms of their top storylines over these past short few weeks. It just is not reflecting in the viewership right now.
No, and I agree, and I've said this. I mean, there's certain things that are a change of pace or change at least in directions, but it's almost like I feel like a lot. Just there's a certain number. There's a couple 100,000. It would seem that have just kind of given up, or at least it said, "Hey, I'll check back in when live crowds come back. I'll check back in when John Cena's back," or it's just that they've lost. We're there every week because we got to be, but it seems like they lost some people. And finally, jumping back to SmackDown. So yeah, SmackDown goes back to the road here in a couple weeks, and I believe this will be the second SmackDown back on the road. It'll be the July 23rd edition, and it's going to be kind of split between the Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse in Cleveland, so half in that arena, and the other half is going to be taking place with matches at the Rolling Loud Miami 2021 Festival. So a little WrestleMania 2 simulcast action going on here, matches in multiple places.
Yeah, I'm very excited about this. I think this is a great, innovative idea. This is one of the things in the Nick Khan era that is a major priority of his, is to get that audience younger. He wants the Cardi B's, the Bad Bunnies. He wants to have wrestling kind of intermingle with the music world and the younger stars. It's almost like they've been reading my articles, and that I've been saying this for years, and that in order to get younger, WWE is going to have to intermingle its product with things that young people, and let's face it, Black people absolutely like to do, because that kind of culture will influence what young culture is. They're doing this concert with A$AP Rocky and Post Malone and even Bobby Shmurda. WWE and Bobby Shmurda, who would have thought? And I really do think that this is going to help. The only thing that I'm kind of concerned about is those Rolling Loud tickets sold out. That's going to be a crowd there to see music. So WWE is going to have to get very creative in intermingling that product, advertising the WWE wrestling ahead of time so that it doesn't catch these people by surprise.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. The big picture here, this is on paper, a good attempt. We'll see how it executes for what you just said. Yeah. I'll be curious. Who do they choose from the SmackDown roster? Who do they think can have the most success to grab the audience and get over? You're right. I mean, the last thing you want here is like a Sturgis Road Wild situation of like all the bikers are there to party and rev their bikes up, and the first thing,
a black version of that, and that, it's not gonna be revving bikes, it's gonna be
and they send Harlem Heat out first. I don't know who WWE is going to send out first to get over. Yeah. God. Oh boy. Oh boy.
I will say this though, on SmackDown's roster, I don't think anybody on the I think Bianca Belair, Sasha Banks, Bayley. There's a lot of people who I think could really connect with these crowds. But of anybody in WWE, I think Hit Row would be perfect in that they are like a kind of a legitimate hip hop act. I was singing their praises last night, and to really bridge that gap between music and wrestling, there's nothing better than Hit Row for that type of crowd. It's just that they're in NXT right now; they're still kind of bubbling, and SmackDown hasn't really gotten their hands on them. But I think Hit Row would be perfect for that.
Well, whatever acts. I mean, you got to watch. Obviously, they got to send some notable acts, whether it's Bianca or whomever, to this Miami part of the show. But I mean, if you're a ticket buying fan in Cleveland who you've waited now patiently over a year and a half, you're gonna be a little salty that you might be watching the big screen to see what if Bianca Belair happens to be your favorite or whoever it is that they send down there. It's a bit.
That's actually a really good point. Yeah, a lot of these people who bought tickets expecting to see their favorite wrestlers after a year of being locked away from them might not be too happy that, we're going to just do it via satellite.
Yeah, and I'm sure somebody brought that up maybe to Nick Khan in the boardroom, and he said, "Oh, the hell with them. They've already paid their ticket. They're already there. So
what do we care?
What do we care?" Okay, so that's going to do it for your news headlines. You can check more of that out in detail and other additional headlines on WrestlingInc.com. News all day and night long. So let's get into this AEW Dynamite. This Road Rager. We're here in Miami, the James L. Knight Center, and kind of a cool look. I don't know if you noticed this, but they went back to the traditional Dynamite setup of having the two tunnels and the stage the way they did, but they shot this differently than I've seen them ever shoot Dynamite prior. They had the hard camera positioned, it tucked away and in the sky, so it wasn't visible, but it was on the stage at the entranceway. So the hard camera was shooting from the perspective of the entranceway, which made a kind of a nice vantage because it made, now you saw three sides of the crowd. You didn't have any, gap of an aisleway or anything, or a gap of hard camera. So it made it look maybe probably more fans than what were actually there. It made it look more packed.
Yeah, and you can notice it immediately. And that was my favorite part, just kind of tuning into this episode early on, is you could just see all these people. And it's one of those things that's should be a point of emphasis to get people to come back and watch the show, in terms of you've been in this kind of Daily's place for a year, which is very limited, and you've kind of seen this limited type capacity crowd. But now you're seeing all these people fill up an arena, and I thought it looked really cool.
Yeah, I thought it was a nice look. Cleveland rocks. Yeah, I'm pissed.
Sorry, Cleveland. Cleveland gets screwed again. I mean, can we pick another city to screw over?
All right, yeah. So Dynamite kicks off. Good to see, to hear the fans, the pyro. Good new kind of production angle that they did for this particular building, at least. And we kick it off with Cody getting the entrance out there. QT Marshall already in the ring, so he got his entrance prior to TV rolling. That always sets a good precedent. But we get the South Florida strap match here. Of course, if you haven't seen a strap match, the idea here, not a pinfall or submission, but you got to be able to control your opponent to the point where you can get around, touch all four corners of the turnbuckle. Cody, he's got QT busted open, and he starts to go for the buckles. He gets two or three in, then the lights go out. They come back on, nothing's there, just enough to distract to get QT Marshall back on his feet. Match continues, and then Cody hits a trifecta crossroads. This looked pretty good. He hits all 4 corners, so Cody Rhodes gets the victory to kick off this new era, back to the road, back to the arenas of Dynamite. But of course, this all would be a little bit of a foreshadowing for the night, for what's to come later in the night. But what'd you think of this opening match, Alfred?
I like the opening match. I love the foreshadowing because they played it like it was a legitimate mistake, and it was getting covered by outlets like, oh, there's power outages in Miami. And so, you did think, just based on the fact that the lights went out and came back on, that, they're just kind of having a power outage issue. So I like how they set that up. It was a very emphatic win for Cody. And I don't think I've seen this too much in wrestling, and how he just slaps the hell out of those 4. He might as well gotten credit for 5 turnbuckles because he slapped the hell out of them. They were counting along with him. It was such a great live crowd thing to watch him. 1, 2, 3, 4. And just seeing him win it this dominantly, the first thing I thought about was, okay, well, they're done with this feud. Who do they have next for Cody? And boy, did we find that out.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. Hurricane Elsa's rolling up Florida right now, and they worked her into the angle of, it's power outages. So an assist to Elsa in the booking. Jimmy Belenko, hope I said that right, Jimmy. 5, I'm not sure the currency, but appreciate it nonetheless. Raj does. Any inside news on if AEW Rampage will be on Fight TV for international fans? I don't know. Obviously, Rampage kicks off August 13th here in Pittsburgh, in fact, on a Friday. I'm not sure what the international distribution would be. Fight TV, I would think, would be a great option. But Alfred, do you know at all?
No, I'm not sure they've even worked that out, but I don't know if it's going to be available. I know that definitely is something that they're going to want to do, and it's going to be a priority because they do well in terms of either international following, but I don't know if they've cleared in terms of how Rampage will be distributed internationally.
Yeah, I mean, obviously they still got 5 weeks to that. I would have to think they would want to. I mean, I wouldn't imagine Tony Khan and them would go into this launching the second live show and not have an international deal figured out, and I can just see them waiting until they get closer until they announce it. But Jimmy, no, sorry, I don't have any solid news for you. But I'm
sure they have something lined up. But just like you said, I think it's going to come like maybe a week, because they don't want to announce it now, and then it's like it's a month out, and you kind of forget about it. But I'm sure in the weeks leading up, they're going to announce something. Yeah,
and I think let me double check that again. I think it's Australian, I believe. So I think it's the currency. Nice. It all goes to Roger's bank account. He has his underwriters do the conversion. I don't even know it. All right, we get Don Callis and Kenny Omega in the ring promo, and kind of a little bit of a repeat of what they did the week prior, of just Kenny running down the people he's beat, the belts he's acquired, making history, got no opponents. Crowd once again is chanting for Hangman Adam Page. Dark Order interrupts. Evil Uno comes out and he goes, "Why are you ignoring this crowd?" And I gotta say, Alfred, one of the nice touches, and last week and then even this week, the crowd does, but nobody in the ring, no talent ever even actually says Hangman Page's name. They always just are referring to him, which I think is a really cool touch. But Evil Uno asked him this question: Omega, what's the capital of Thailand? Proceeds to Bangkok low blow him. All hell breaks loose. But here comes Hangman Adam Page, and Adam Page comes out and he starts to clear house. So it looks like we are finally on the move now, on the final path of building to Hangman Page sooner or later here now for the world title against Kenny Omega.
Yeah, they're taking their own sweet time, as they should, because I don't see this happening until September, which is that big show they're going to have in Flushing Meadows. So they're even taking their time in announcing Hangman Adam Page. And I love that the fans were in lockstep with where the storyline's going. Evil Uno, as you mentioned, came out and said, you're not listening to these people, but it's not like they had planned. I mean, I'm sure they expected that, maybe these people will chant for Hangman Adam Page, but that was a good thing. And it kind of tells you how in sync everybody is, in that Kenny Omega's cutting this promo and saying he's beating everybody, and it incited these "We Want Hangman" chants, which brought out Evil Uno to say, listen to these people. So it was really cool, and that they're really building toward Hangman Adam Page. He just kind of teased that, what's his finisher called? The buckshot lariat. And just that tease, similar to that pay-per-view where he kind of teased that he was going to do it. Those fans went crazy at just the sight of it. So I think they're doing a good job just biding their time with this, and I think they're going to build up to a fever pitch.
Yeah, it doesn't come along all the time. Promotions and bookers always want it. They always want to have that baby face that is on such rise, and that the crowd is really clamoring to win it. And then you put that baby face, hopefully you're in the right step of that crowd, and you have that baby face positioned to get ready to take the world title. It's not like a case of where sold out crowds are buying shirts and chanting Rusev Day, and you have them, fluttering around in the mid card. So this is a great situation. Hopefully, everybody remains healthy. Hopefully, as they go to each of these cities, the fever for Hangman Pitch remains for the crowd, which I think it would. So yeah, this is a good situation for AEW. Whether they cash in on the Queens show that you mentioned, whether it's All Out or they have plenty of options. So that's fun to watch. All right, what we got here? Another super chat. Dazzle by Nature. €5. Hey guys, watching from Ireland. How cool was it seeing Tommy End in AEW? I wonder, will Braun be next?
Yeah,
yeah. Tommy End, or as WWE fans would know him, Aleister Black. He is going to come in here to the rundown here sooner than later. So we'll save the flood of comments for that. And in terms of Braun being next, I mean, look, Dazzle by Nature. That's the crazy time right now. Is there's just the list of who has been booted from Titan Towers in the last couple months, and who's a free agent. When's their 90 days up? Do they have 90 days to wait? What's the situation? So this is certainly to AEW's benefit that WWE has done a couple rounds of notable releases, and AEW's going back on the road. And certainly it's an unspoken advertisement that AEW has of come to the live show. You never know who we might have show up, who we've just signed.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great point, too. In addition to the novelty of being around live fans again, I mean, this show was a great advertisement for what's to come in AEW.
For sure. So we get a backstage pre-tape interview earlier in the day. Jim Ross sitting as a moderator between Ethan Page and Darby Allin. JR just kind of talks about it. He's uncomfortable sitting between these two, considering the hatred they've spewed about wanting to end each other's careers. Darby talks about how Ethan Page is jealous that Ethan Page got married, had kids, never left his hometown. Meanwhile, Darby was living out of his car, homeless, and willing to do whatever it took to get to a place like AEW. And Ethan Page responds and says, I've plucked you, out of obscurity. I've elevated you because of who I am, and they're making you more relevant. And they confirm next week, Ethan Page versus Darby Allin in a coffin match. What'd you like in this, or did you not like?
Okay, I did like what was said. I liked the segment. I liked the idea. There just something that was a little off about this. It just didn't click with me. I just felt like they might be rushing to this too soon, and I felt like maybe they should have spent more time talking about Darby Allin and Ethan's relationship, because they do have an off-screen relationship that dates back years, and that's something that if they were going to use that as the central talking point in this interview, I don't think as many people are aware of the fact that Ethan and Darby have this history. So I think they've mentioned it in passing, but they made that like the central part. So it's good, and I like what they're doing here, but it just didn't click with me in terms of, oh, wow, these two guys really hate each other and they're going to kill each other next week, which I know is what they were going for, but I just didn't feel it all the way here.
No, that's valid, and I know that they're probably handcuffed of what video footage they have. They have the ability to use to sell and show anything to illustrate that these two guys have known each other longer than AEW. But I agree. It feels a little forced of like, well, why do these guys want to kill each other? Like, I could name like 3-4 other feuds right now in AEW that have been going on that like I could buy that kind of language in way more than I can buy this. And it's just because the feud has drawn out on AEW television for a certain amount of time, and the actions have. Where this, Darby's been throwing down some steps, so we've seen some pretty violent things in a short amount of time, but it's not all there, as you said, Alfred, to what they're trying to acknowledge this longer span of time, but they have no visuals for it. They have no real references that they can make. So yeah, exactly. So I don't know.
And that's a good point, Justin. If this was a story they're going to tell, maybe this would have been better maybe they are limited of what footage they could show, but maybe this would have been better as just kind of a vignette showing that history. Yeah.
So, I mean, we'll see. I mean, a coffin match next week, that's a pretty, obviously in the wrestling world, a coffin match is a pretty finite, like, we're blowing things off. So I'll be curious to see what they have lined up for the booking of that. $4.99 from my buddy Jack's calendar says, I got a jet. LaBar, your show streaming or only in person? Alfred Turbo sends his love.
What up, Turbo? It's a snake. Great snake.
Snake. I'm guessing Jack's referring to the show this Friday. Yeah, I'm returning to the managerial circles of the wrestling ring, managing Spencer Slade up against Big Cass. Carlito's on the show. Enzo, a lot of good. In person, I believe the IWC Wrestling has the IWC Wrestling Network. I believe it would be on that as well. I don't have any of the stuff handy, but if you go to IWCWrestling.com, the info would be there if it is going to be live stream. If not, I'm sure it'll be archived and aired after the fact. Of course, if you can be here in the Pittsburgh area, still some tickets you can get at the door Friday night at the Ross Draver Ice Gardens. Big Cass actually going to be he's stealing my show. He's going to be on Busted Open tomorrow morning, apparently. I got a feeling he's going to be talking some crap. I'll be back on Friday morning on Busted Open, as I always am, so I'll get the final word
Oh no, you got to pull up on him tomorrow. On Friday. This Friday, you got to go over there and show up and tell him what's up.
I mean, he was on CBS radio here in Pittsburgh talking. He's 7 foot tall. He's talking from his 7-foot mountain, talking a lot of trash. But I'll have the last word on radio Friday morning, and then I'll have the last word when Spencer Slade is standing over him in the ring Friday night. So it's all good. It's all good.
That's what I'm talking about.
It's all good. All right. Moving on here. Moving right along. Thanks, Jax, for segueing my plug. All right, we got a little 6-man tag action here. We got Harwood and Wheeler and Wardlow up against Jake Hager, Santana, and Ortiz. This sees a ref distraction. Dax and Cass end up hitting the big rig. This allows Wardlow to crawl in and get the pin on Jake Hager. So, a nice little, and Conan's out there as well. He comes in, tries to hit the sock with the coins on the back of Wardlow, but Tully Blanchard comes in and just clips Conan in the knee. So big thing here, Wardlow getting a pin on Hager. So their little beef here continues as they try to one up each other.
And you could tell between AEW how they positioned this match to kind of build to that Clash of the Titans and how the crowd received it. This Wardlow Hager thing, there's something there. They've got this great chemistry. I've been talking this up even back to the days when they were together and all they would do is stare at each other. I thought that was great. So Wardlow and Hager is quietly one of the better feuds in, I think, all of pro wrestling, in that they do more with less. I think that MMA fight that they did that we didn't get to talk about on the show because it was on one of those Saturday nights was phenomenal. And I just love Wardlow versus Hager, and I can't sing their praises enough. Yeah,
there's a lot of continuity here. They've really stretched this out for many miles, as you say. Even go back to when MJF and Wardlow and them were all involved in the inner circle and all being buddy to each other's faces, and they all went to Vegas, like Wardlow and Hager, the competition of who could throw somebody further, and just never took their eyes off each other. It was just great little things if you were really paying attention. Speaking of MJF and Jericho, so we get their stare down. This, of course, going to be the meeting at the proverbial contract table where MJF's going to list the stipulations. MJF comes out, and then Jericho comes out, an arena full of people, of course, singing Judas on My Mind. It should be noted, though, because, of course, we cannot let it. A fan attempts to jump the ring. Yes, we are out of the pandemic, boys and girls. We are back. Fans are jumping the barricades. The fan jumps, and from everything I've read, Alfred, the fan was trying to go after MJF and hollering that he was going to kill MJF.
Jericho had to step in there and shoot on him.
He did. So luckily security gets a hold of this nut job. And then MJF's playing off it, says, if any of you other fat white pieces of trash want to try to come in here and attack Jericho, go ahead.
They both did such a good job playing off that. You could tell it was obviously something that was not planned. But between MJF and Jericho just making those barbs, it almost became about this fan, and they didn't miss a beat.
No, they didn't. They played right off of it. Look, this is the kind of stuff. I mean, especially an MJF character. This is what he lives for. This is a sign of affirmation that you're doing your job.
Yes.
And I say the greatest compliment I can give to MJF, in 2021, is the guy never loses. He never breaks character, rightly or wrongly. I mean, I've seen people sometimes even react, that he's MJF at meet and greets, even to kids, that he doesn't drop down to that one knee and high pitch his voice a little bit to him. He's MJF no matter what your age is, no matter who you are, no matter if you're in a wheelchair or whatever. He doesn't do the placate to you. He's MJF. And I all I can say is that's the greatest compliment I can give him, is that in 2021, when everybody is exposed to some degree of the real name, of the real personality, of some fun fact about their life outside of the business, MJF has managed to keep pretty protected. So
yeah, and it's no coincidence that he's the biggest heel they have, and it's trending toward being their biggest star. And I really hate that this is the exception and not the rule. I think all heels, maybe I'm old school, I think all wrestlers who are designated as heels should copy this formula, in that you don't have to be MJF, but protect your gimmick and be a bad guy. I know it might be hard, and some people are just too empathetic, and that's good. That's a good thing. Some people have too much empathy to play that character in real life. But I love that MJF takes it so seriously, and it's paying off handsomely.
Yeah, I mean, look, the reality is today, I'm not saying all heels, but like some guys, they want to get booed. They want to get booed while they're clocked in doing the job, but they still want to sell merch. And sometimes it's hard to peddle merch at that intermission if you're, depending on what kind of heel you are, or you're, or some guys, it sounds cool when you talk about it, but then in the actual situation of like fans actually trying to jump the barricade because you've got them so riled up, that's a little intimidating. You don't know, there's crazy people out there in the world, especially in Florida. You don't know. So, I mean, good on him for not being afraid to be a heel. So MJF talks about everybody wants the rub, including Chris Jericho. Talks about MJF loves Greek mythology, and talks about the four labors to Hercules, and basically setting up here that before Jericho gets to MJF, Jericho has to beat four men that MJF will choose, and each match will have a different stipulation. And if Jericho can do that back to back, he then will get MJF, and Jericho says that's fine. If he can't beat all of them and MJF, maybe he doesn't belong in AEW anymore. And finally, MJF, a little Calvin Candy like from Django Unchained, demands none of this matters until you shake my hand. Shaking of the hand, which turns into a Judas effect by Jericho.
Love the reference, and I think it was the five labors. Maybe I heard it differently, but
sorry.
I really like when MJF does this. Obviously, you shouldn't do it too much, but I love that this is a staple of the character, and I want to see this more for his big feuds, where he says, in order to get to me, you have to do this. It kind of forces AEW to plan long-term, and it really builds that match to a fever pitch. He did pretty much the same thing with Cody, where at the end, Cody had to beat Wardlow in a steel cage, and it really properly built to Cody versus MJF, and by the time they got there, it was a really hot match. So I love that MJF does this, where it plays right into his character, where he wants you at your weakest state. So he can keep this win streak going, but he still has heat on him because, of course you beat him at the end of this five labors thing.
Yeah, I mean, and look, there's 8 weeks till All Out. So I mean, if you did, you can stagger it. Whether Jericho does, whether they truly do back to back, to whether it's 4 or 5 weeks in a row, whether they do it every other week. I mean, there's room to book this out and plan this. And you're right. And the fact that MJF, I'm sure this was on purpose, did not say that the guy, that the guys are going to be, pinnacle guy. He didn't say. I mean, again, which leaves the room open to what I said a minute ago. Tune into AEW, come out and buy a ticket. You never know who could show up. You don't know who's on our roster right now. So the super chat earlier, it said Braun Strowman. I mean, I don't know. I'm just saying there's just endless booking possibilities because nothing's out of bounds at this point. So
yeah, it has like an open challenge feel to it. Like when Cena would do those open challenges, you didn't know you were going to get Alberto Del Rio returning, or you were going to get Cesaro from somewhere. And I really do like that idea of Braun Strowman. To be honest, that would be a nice way to kind of test Braun Strowman in that. Like, I think Braun Strowman would be a good addition to AEW. I might be on the outside thinking that, but one of the things that people have kind of talked about is, they want to make sure his attitude in terms of a guy coming from being a top star, maybe test him, have him go in there and not beat Jericho and see how he takes to that. But I would love to see that.
Yeah, I mean, you bring up Braun Strowman under whatever name you label him as. I mean, if I'm Brian Cage, if I'm Jake Hager, if I'm Wardlow, if I'm Lance Archer, I'm not loving that because he is legitimately. I mean, maybe Archer's the same height as him, but he's bigger than all those guys, and so and obviously he has the biggest name. He's main evented WrestleMania, so I mean it's a big catch, I guess, for AEW. But we've already that's been a critique of the booking with AEW is how they using the big man, how they setting them up. So that would be something to watch. Is it a one-off? Is it a short term? Is it something long term? We'll keep an eye. Jack's doing my promotional work for me. He says the fans may watch via IWC Network with the purchase of a monthly subscription, $9.99 with 1 month free trial. So there you go.
Jax deserves a cut. You got to give him 10% of those streams.
Absolutely. IWCWrestling.com. Go check it out for your free 1 month subscription. We got another Dazzle by Nature 5 super chat. I remember when AEW started, the fans would react if they signed WWE stars. They're begging them to now. Times change. So yeah, well, I mean, I think it depends on who that person is that they sign.
Sure.
I will say, I know they have another. I know Rampage is coming. I mean, they have a heavy list of talent that they do. So that's something to watch of how the use goes here.
And I think part of that change is that, maybe a year or two ago or whenever AEW was starting up, WWE's philosophy was to keep everybody. And so there wasn't as much as that demand, but now the market's pretty much flooded with all these former WWE guys. So that conversation expands in that you've got a bigger pool of talent to choose from.
Absolutely. We get a promo backstage. This one got the world talking on social media tonight. Britt Baker's cutting her promo. Of course, Rebel is there, on the crutches. So we talked about it last week. We weren't sure what it was. I saw Rebel got hurt in the middle of that breaking up the pin last week. Looks like she just blew her knee out apparently. And so Britt's really just cutting this promo, cutting it on Tony Khan, calling him TK. Talking about not liking this match anyways with Vicky. Why is Vicky? Oh, Vicky's here to bring in El Idolo. Oh, this is just a blood money situation. And then she segues at this blood money. Blood money. Why don't we just go have an AEW show in Saudi Arabia next week? Woo! So that one got the Twitters going. Of course, taking a shot at WWE and their Saudi Arabia deal. It talks about next week in Dallas. The Big D doesn't know anything about that, but it'll be the Big DMD. Britt just she can't miss on the promo right now.
She's floating on cloud nine. I mean, that was the most gangster thing I saw on the show. And Dan Lambert was on the show, so it's saying a lot. I mean, I just thought like that was a bar where you didn't see it coming, and she's perfectly built up to that punchline. It was well written. I loved how she delivered it. And you know what's funny? It's kind of a happy accident that Reba, not Rebel, is now back with this knee injury. It sucks that she got a knee injury, but she already has the merch for it. You know, she already was working the gimmick, and now she's back to doing that gimmick. So hopefully she gets to sell more T-shirts.
Yeah, some more merch is what it's all about. I wouldn't be surprised if there's the Britt made a good killing off of that. It was from one of those at the early pandemic shows. Remember when she like got busted open and she had blood all over, and
Yes.
she's had a couple of those imageries where she's made good shirts off of her, bloody face. I'm just waiting for a Blood Money Saudi Arabia shirt to be on Pro Wrestling Tees by tomorrow morning.
Please.
Yeah, the merch is there, Britt. Go get it. All right. Well, speaking of El Idolo, we get the in-ring debut in AEW of El Idolo Andrade versus Matt Sydal. He's out there. El Idolo is with Vicky and with his assistant. He's out there. Black and white pinstripe. He's got a black mask. This is not a squash match. It's competitive. Matt Sydal has some good offense. A fun match for what it was, but obviously no way and how do you have Andrade lose? He, of course, does get the win. What you make of this one, Alfred?
Hated the gear, but Andrade looks to be in like the best shape of his life. I thought he looked like $1,000, and the match was very good. And as competitive as it was, I thought it was actually way better than I thought. Because kind of like you, I expected him it was going to be a showcase featuring his moves, but they gave Matt Sydal stuff, and I thought this was a good match. And I'm happy to see El Idolo. I hope that they actually have a plan for where they're going with this.
You don't like the gear?
Not a fan of it. I didn't like I liked his old gear. I was a big fan of. I think that he just looked so great with the trunk, the pants, and the boots and stuff like that. But him just wearing those kind of pinstripe, almost baseball pants over his boots, just looked like just like a normal person. I didn't think he looked like a professional wrestler.
Well, I mean, yeah, he looked like a New York Yankee. I mean, well, you have to remember, Alfred, he just came from New York.
Oh, I see. So you have to wear pinstripes. So where are the pinstripes for the segment that we're going to talk about with Malachi?
He just left WWE. He came from New York, right? So he has to,
Okay.
I mean, what, do you want him to wear Jacksonville Jaguar colors? Come on now.
At least the Mets. I mean, why not the Mets? What's wrong with the Mets?
Right. All right. So here's what everybody wants to talk about, really. So we get this kind of just, hang on before we go to that. So sell it, Justin Lopez, $1.99. I think he was going for a black mask from
Yes,
Batman.
I heard that on Twitter. Okay, I get it. But you got to understand that this is a big inside joke if you're just going to do comic book references. Not all wrestling fans cross over with comic book. I'm a comic book guy, and I didn't even really pick up on that until somebody said it, and then I was like, oh, that's right. That is what he's going for.
Yeah. It's like didn't Ricochet do that too? Ricochet tried to like do some comedy, like some comic book, and his gear, I think, just got kind of questioned. All right.
So did Wolverine. I thought that was really good how he did it.
Yeah. And of course, Rey Mysterio's done, he's done like big budget Hollywood things for his Mania costumes. Yeah. Didn't he do Avatar one year, I think?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So Arn Anderson standing in the ring with Tony Schiavone. So all right, what's Arn got to say here? We see Arn and Cody earlier in the night. So Arn's happy to be in Miami. Lights are out again. Oh, must be weather, right? Lights are out for a pretty long time. Oh my God, there he is. Tommy End. No, that's not Tommy End. He used to be Tommy. He's not Tommy End. It's Malachi Black. Of course, this is Aleister Black, as we know him from WWE, and just takes a kick right to Arn Anderson's face, knocks Arn out, and Cody's quickly out there, takes a spinning kick to Cody, levels Cody, takes his head off. Crowd, of course, holy shit moment. So a lot to unpack here. So first off, Malachi Black. If you were following along on Wrestling Inc. on social media earlier today on Wednesday, Tommy End unveiled this Malachi Black persona on a pretty well produced video on Instagram. So he already kind of teased that. So I mean, I guess it was acceptable, of course, for Excalibur to be able to give us the name. Spelling is in question, as Alfred pointed out on Twitter. But here it is. So look, Aleister Black, one of the guys, kind of surprising that was released by WWE, released on the opening days of June, and but the 90-day was a kind of in question, and we'd heard rumblings. Different people had reported, outlets reported that maybe somebody had got out of the 90 days. Of course, Andrade got out of his deal and didn't have a 90 days. So Aleister Black, Tommy End, Malachi Black is what we're going with. No 90-day non-compete here for him. He is in AEW. It looks like he's here to stay. And what a debut. I mean, I got to be up there, right? For the surprise factor. I mean, it's got to be right up there with the Moxleys, right? Of a surprise debut for AEW.
Yes, I think it might have even been better if you just listen to the reaction, the way they played this up for, like we were mentioning earlier, the lights going off. This time around, when they went off, they were out for longer, and you had Excalibur on commentary apologizing. So you're thinking, and to AEW has had a couple of blunders, and they are a new company, so this is kind of up their alley in terms of something that would go wrong for them. So I was legitimately thinking, oh God, here we go. And there were already stories out there about their power outages. And so the lights came on and you see Aleister Black in the ring. That place went crazy. And I'm not a gasper. I gasped. I was like, I could not believe that somebody had shown up and this is all part of an angle. I thought it was so well done. And this is Cody has such a flair from the dramatic, and he gets it from his dad in terms of he's always seems to know how to pull off like a dramatic angle, whether it's against Shaq, whether it's this angle, even with
he booked a hurricane as a disguise for the damn lights to go out.
Yeah, he booked a hurricane. Like, this is so well done, and it came out of left field for me. I thought this was great.
Our New York City Demon Diva. I love the pinstripe. Yeah, of course.
New York's own. Look, full disclosure, I am a Yankees fan. I love the Yankees. I just didn't like the pinstripes on Aleister Black or on Andrade. I like his old gear.
God, could you imagine Issa if Roman Reigns came out in pinstripe gear? Good Lord. So, all right. So yes, so Malachi Black. I mean, first off, this is exciting. I'm a fan of it, and I think what's most exciting about this to me is Aleister Black. He stood out so much in the way of his music and his entrance in WWE, or more so in NXT. They did away with it not long after his run on the main roster. The rising up, the music, the way it was timed, it just fit the character. I mean, it really stood out. I'm a big proponent. I'm big on entrances and presentation. I'm not to knock the 5-star guys and the bell to bell stuff. I appreciate it in a certain category, but I will take somebody who has a killer entrance all day long first. Okay, and then we'll teach them the other stuff after the fact, because you just can't, an entrance just can't be assigned to somebody. It's got to fit the character. They got to be able to pull it off and have that charisma, have that feel, have that walk. The Aleister Black character had it. So I'm really excited because I have to think that Tony Khan and company are going to let the creative juices just flow, let the imagery flow, and take what WWE started a step further. I don't know if he's going to do the rising up. I don't know if we could see a Gangrel Brood kind of thing up to the fire, but I gotta imagine that they are going to really swing for the fences and give him an entrance that stands out in AEW, because that's what he had in WWE, and WWE dropped the ball with him. So do you want to capitalize off of this?
100,000% with you in that this seems to be character driven. I was saying that I was opposed to Aleister Black just coming in to be another wrestler, but if they're bringing this in as a character, which he had the makeup already, and yes, it does seem like they're going to lean into the character of Aleister Black or Malachi Black now, I'm all for it. If they make this into something that's larger than life, that's not necessarily focused on the in-ring, and working with Cody, it's not going to just be wrestling. They're going to tell a story. They're going to have a character, and this is going to be huge. When he was in NXT, you saw the potential of this. You saw when they kept him unbeaten, and he had that great entrance where he rose in off that stage thing. That I thought that if they continue to make this about the character, the sky's the limit.
Yeah, and that thing that he would rise up on, I believe he even said somewhere in an interview that was actually a prop that never made it to TV for an Undertaker spot or gimmick or something. And so, I mean, look, when you get to use Undertaker magic, to make it to the cutting room floor, I mean, you can only, it can't be that bad, right? I who would have thought too within a week, just going in the real life stuff here, that his wife would return to WWE after her loud departure, and that he would then, surpass a 90-day non-compete somehow, and show up on AEW in the way he did. So yeah, a lot of this certainly was the headline of the night of the show.
Also, the juxtaposition between, God loves Zelina Vega because I think she's a phenomenal manager, but I think that return was one of the worst returns I think I've seen in terms of her just coming back and losing quickly and for no reason, in that he returned with one of the best returns I've seen of the year. So it was really weird dichotomy there.
Put it in Nick Khan's comment box, I guess. I don't know.
It's there already.
Nick, rightfully or wrongfully, I know you interviewed him. Nick Khan has quickly become like the new public punching bag for the IWC for any. You know.
I don't think it's fair at all. I think two things can be true. I mean, he's a supreme executive. He's a guy who's there. If it wasn't Nick Khan, it would be somebody else doing this in terms of cutting people. And that's the best guy who could do it in terms of WWE from a business standpoint. Like, I try to compartmentalize with this because, yeah, it sucks that people get fired and stuff like that. But it's not like Nick Khan is this ruthless killer who's just hungry for firing people and whatnot. It's just there, what he's there to do. And he's one of the best deal makers there.
Well, rightly or wrongly, the perception that internet wrestling and wrestling social media has, again, rightfully or wrongfully developed here, and I'm kind of leaning into it with my comments, is that like Nick Khan has become the bad cop, and Vince gets to kind of lay back and be the good cop. When
there's doing this, guys.
Oh man! All right, so. Coming off of that, we get into some mixed tag action. Orange Cassidy and Chris Statlander up against the Bunny and the Blade. Statlander's going to hit in the area 451 on the Blade. She's also going to hit this tombstone pile driver on the Bunny for Orange Cassidy and Chris Statlander to get a win here. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. This was okay, and this was, you know, I mean, it was fun to see her do the 450 on Blade, but this, I don't know. I'm iffy on mixed tags a lot of times.
Yeah, this is a weird match in that, like, there was a stretch of time where they knocked out Orange Cassidy with a foreign object, and it looked like they're going to have the Blade pin Orange Cassidy. With all due respect to the Blade, like, Orange Cassidy should not be pinned by the Blade, and that's what it looked like they were doing. So it was a nice little fake out to have Chris Statlander kind of save Orange Cassidy and tag back in. But yeah, this match was what it was. It was just kind of there, and you know, it's hard to follow all the excitement that was happened before it and that really happened after it.
Yeah, well, after it, one of the more random things we've ever seen. So they're in Miami, and America Top Talent, Dan Lambert, who's the owner, he's a very charismatic, loud owner. He actually, real quick sidebar, he's also in the news this week. I don't know if you saw this, Alfred, with the new name, image, likeness rule of now allowing college athletes to be able to monetize off of themselves. A big screw you to the NCAA. Dan Lambert, who's in Miami, who is a huge Miami Hurricanes fan and booster, is offering to pay like every Miami Hurricane football player like $500 for them to then promote his gym. And he's saying, whether you believe it or not, he's saying he's not trying to profit off them. He just wants, he wants to promote the gym. He wants to promote a sense of community, and wants to help them out with now being able to get fight. So quite a character as is. He's out in the crowd, and he's got Manny Nunez. He's got some MMA fighters with him, and then he proceeds to take the mic from Shivani and just work his way into the ring and cut this live promo. Live promo, just basically running down the AEW product, running down professional wrestling today, noting the good old days of the 80s and 90s of wrestling and how it all just sucks now. And then here comes Lance Archer, who puts him out of his misery. But this was a killer live promo from a 51-year-old, pro wrestling outsider by all accounts.
It came out of nowhere, and I think it came as a shock to a lot of people. But if you saw him, he was doing this in Impact, and he was a huge star doing this. I believe he was put with Bobby Lashley at the time when they were doing this. So Dan Lambert is a legitimate wrestling fan. He's a guy who gets some of the rarest belts in the world. He's got some rare belt collection stuff. So he loves wrestling. And I just loved this guy's such a great actor. And he's so good at speaking with conviction and passion. He legitimately, this did not seem like a scripted, some guy coming off, you're going to play our punching bag for the guy who hates. They're not like lampooning the guy who hates AEW. He seemed like a guy who, we're going to give you a live mic. You hate AEW. Tell us why. And he just went to town, and he's been the talk of this chat. I don't know if it's more so the WWE people are rallying behind him or they just appreciate for what it is, but I'm a guy who likes AEW, and I loved this promo, and I love Dan Lambert, and I think I hope this leads to something with MMA versus AEW.
I mean, look, obviously it's unfair because the WWE RAW and SmackDown guys and girls some of them are handcuffed more than others with having to say certain things and having to say things that aren't, whatever. This guy cut a better promo than we hear from many of them. Again, not probably by a lack of talent on their part, but just because, as you said, Tony probably just said, here's what we need you to do. You got 90 seconds to do it. And
boy, did he ever. I thought that was a phenomenal promo.
Oh man. So something fun, just a little, kind of, again, that kind of element of, you never know, tune in, come to a show. You never know who might be there and who might get worked into just a quick little crossover, whether it's just a one-time thing as we're in Miami or whether this comes back around. Of course, he got a little promo in for his boy who's fighting McGregor this weekend in Vegas.
Conor McGregor got a shout out there. Got a lot of heat on the show.
Yeah.
I will say the one nitpick I have, if they're going to do business with like Dan Lambert's camp versus AEW, they did cut to Amanda Nunes after he got laid out, and she was just laughing and enjoying herself. I don't think she was smart enough that like this is all part of an angle.
Not to mention, you put Amanda Nunes get in there, she'll probably try to give Archer a run for his money.
Oh,
She ain't putting up with any crap.
She might pound for pound be the best fighter in the world.
Right.
Man or woman.
Right. All right. Main event time. So fall, fall's kind of, it doesn't matter. Nothing. There's no rules here. Penta, El Zero Miedo, and Eddie Kingston up against the Young Bucks. This is just shenanigans all over the place, Alfred. Penta hits a Canadian Destroyer on Matt Jackson off the apron into a table, which was insane. Nick Jackson hits a 450 on the ref while Kingston is choking out Matt Jackson. So Kingston's not getting the submission win that he should, because Rick Knox just got 450'd by Nick Jackson. Out comes the Good Brothers again, all craziness, and then the finish here, the Bucks put thumbtacks in Kingston's mouth and hit him with a super kick. Young Bucks win. I mean, it's crazy main event here. What are you taking from this one?
Absolutely. I mean, the Young Bucks look great in their John Cena Thugonomics type gear, but they're like macramated shorts, so they continue to do that thing. I thought it's just AEW has such a discipline problem that even when they have a street fight and they have no rules, you would think it's like, okay, you have no rules, so now you can work a little outside the lines, you would still have a match. But they took that and they took all the advantage of that to where, we have no rules. Well, then we're going to throw all this stuff at you. We're going to 450 the ref. Like, even though it was a street fight with no rules, I still felt, man, this is overbooked. I was still having to kind of restrain myself and this is getting out of control. But, I did think it was a good match. I thought that it looked like they were rushing to finish because, this was a live show and they were inching up against the hour. So it kind of sped to the finish.
Maybe Dan Lambert ran long.
Maybe. Yeah. And listen, it was worth it. But I just thought, even though it was a street fight, it was still too overbooked. And that's saying a lot.
Yeah, and I'm the same way. I tried to appreciate the finish of thumbtacks in the mouth, that's brutal, and super kick, and I was trying not to get lost in that. But yeah, I mean, like that. Look, let's just do this. Let's just make it from now on. AEW, you want to be innovative, you want to be fan engagement experience. I got one for you. Don't even bother sending a ref out in stripes for tag matches, especially tornado tag matches, which is basically every tag match in AEW. Don't send a ref in stripes shirts. No. Because there's no need. There's nothing for them to, refs out there to refs supposed to be out there to enforce rules so that way a heel can break rules, so heel can get heat. But we just break the rules anyways. That doesn't matter. There's no countouts. There's no DQs. So don't bother sending a ref out there. All you need is just let the fans. They can just count. They can count one. They can count. They'd already do it anyways. They know to stop when somebody kicks out. They know to say 3 if somebody didn't kick out. And then here you go, fan engagement premium tickets you can sell. Sell 50 premium tickets where you get to show up to the building and you get to be one of the 50 fans that gets to be drawn in a lottery. And you draw if you're going to have 4 tag matches in a show, you get to draw 4 fans, and that fan gets to sit next to Justin Roberts, the timekeeper, and gets to be the special fan who gets to count 1, 2, 3 from the ringside. That's great. That's great money right there. Great fan engagement. And it doesn't change anything about your booking.
They might listen to you on that one. I mean, that might be what we need in terms of having a fan go in there, but you just don't want it to be that fan who ran in and tried to shoot on MJF, but maybe somebody who's more disciplined and
handcuffing to Justin Roberts. Justin Roberts.
Listen, I love the idea. I think they should do that for one of these nights. But listen, that's the point that we're getting to in terms of these matches. I mean, listen, this is a wild match. I was not a fan of them throwing those thumbtacks. I don't want to see that much. I know that they haven't figured out where they probably nobody really got too hurt, but they're playing with fire, throwing those thumbtacks around in people's eyes like that.
Yeah, there's a lot of things I say that I think that the thumbtacks, there's some quality control things we're gonna have to keep. Thumbtacks, of course. I say it anyways, and this is out of respect. Darby Allin. I mean, the things I see Darby doing, again, I'm like, that's. I'm wildly entertained by the guy, and I have mad respect for his balls. But I'm like, dude, you're walking a thin line of you can only do those stunts for some. I mean, yeah, you're in your 20s now. Those stunts, that the stunts will only last you so long.
Yeah, that moment came for me when he fell down those stairs. That was okay, Darby, let's relax on these stunts now, because that's going to be the beginning of the end if he keeps doing stuff like that.
Right. So, but yeah, I mean, look, crazy shenanigans of an ending. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, let me ask you this again. Now that we get to obviously, we have the luxury of armchair quarterbacking this thing, an hour and 2 minutes after it ended. Obviously Tony Khan and company, they're doing the best they can on paper, booking at what they think is going to come off the best, what makes the best, what should be positioned. Do you keep the show this way, the way we just saw it, the way we just reviewed it, or I know you want to start hot in front of a live crowd. Do you start hot with this craziness up front, or do you start hot with El Idolo's in-ring debut? And my point is, do you end with the strap match so that way you can have Cody win, but then lights out after the fact, Malachi Black make the entry? Because it seems like that Malachi Black thing is what most people are talking about. So, like, is that the right? Does that matter? Do you end on that, or do you end on having Young Bucks, one of your big featured talents, standing tall?
That's a good point. I wouldn't, just based on how the show played out, I think the Malachi Black surprise appearance was made that much better because there was a foreshadowing at the beginning that was so realistic. So I definitely wouldn't change how they set that up, unless you want Arn Anderson in the main event segment, which, with all due respect to Arn Anderson, I mean, Arn Anderson speaks with Tony Schiavone is not a main event segment. Even if you do have a surprise plan, I don't know if that's something that's going to
That's what I mean. That's what I mean. You do away with the Arn stuff, and you just have the Cody match, and then Black shows up.
But I would not do it that way, because I think the way they did it with Arn Anderson later and setting it up was so well done. But having said that, this is the big takeaway on the show. This is Dan Lambert, but maybe that should have been the thing in terms of Cody and QT Marshall are in the main event. Cody wins this match, and then the lights off, lights on. I think that could have sent people out on an extreme high, given how big of a pop he got. I have no problem with that if they were to end it like that. I maybe wouldn't have ended it with this Young Bucks match, that's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just playing devil's advocate here. I mean, it's, I get why they put the Bucks versus Penta and Eddie last. I get it. I mean, it was they really did throw all the rules out here, so I guess you end on that, and of course, the Bucks are the Bucks. I mean, I get it. I always, especially looking at, Malachi Black makes his debut at 15 minutes into the second hour, so it's not the turn of the, there was not one of the necessarily those pivotal points you hear about on TV. Granted, they don't have any direct competition with wrestling on Wednesday nights anymore. But I don't know. I love armchair quarterback in these things of where would you position the show? How would you have put it? So something to think about. But nonetheless, a Dynamite certainly making headlines and quite the big splash back on the road. Of course, Miami was tonight. They'll be in Austin, Texas next week, which I believe JR noted they are sold out. There was no tickets for them to promote on tonight's show. So expect a big show in Dallas next week for Dynamite as they continue back on the road. And of course, WWE inching closer and closer, much needed, thankfully, to the road as they will return next week and they get out of the Thunderdome. Alfred, anything else you want to talk about? Bring up, plug, Forbes.com, what you got going on?
Watch me on Forbes. Got a piece reacting to tonight's show. I'll be talking about SmackDown. I'll also be talking about the Rolling Loud Festival that's coming. Have a lot of good stuff on that. Follow me on Twitter at This Is Nasty and YouTube Pro Wrestling Bits.
There you go. He's Alfred Konuwa. I'm Justin LaBar at Justin LaBar. Of course, like I said, Friday morning, 10 a.m. every single Friday. I'm on Sirius XM Radio, channel 156, busted open with Dave LaGreca and Mark Henry. I'll be on, and of course, Friday night, go to IWCWrestling.com. If you can't be here in the Pittsburgh area, sign up for your subscription to the IWC Network. Myself managing Spencer Slade. You got to see this guy. Look, I had RJ City. I had Wardlow. I know talent. I'm telling you, Spencer Slade's a guy you're going to be seeing at even greater places not long from now. Up against Big Cass. You can see Enzo up against Juice Robertson, New Japan star. You can see Carlito involved in a tag match. You can. There's going to be tons of talent to watch on this show, so check it out. Go to IWCWrestling.com. Get all the details. It is this Friday night, or if you can get to the Pittsburgh area, some tickets will still be at the door come Friday. So Justin LaBar business back in session. Thanks, everybody.
Champions.
That's right. Make sure you leave a comment, hit a like, hit the subscribe, do all the things, and we'll talk to you next Wednesday night.